Welcome to the San Jose Hockey Now podcast. I'm Jared Bednar, live from Denver. No, actually, I'm Sheng Peng, but I am live from Denver. This is the backdrop, the Avalanche backdrop for their post-game press conferences. Anyway, Sheng Peng, editor-in-chief, San Jose Hockey Now. Find my work also at NBC Sharks and on Twitter at Sheng_Peng.
And I'm Keegan McNally. You can find me on Twitter at halfwall_hockey, at my website, half-wallhockey.com, or at San Jose Hockey Now. I don't have as cool as a background as you, but that does look pretty nice, actually.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, right?
Good to take some questions from, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You are reporting
I can just see
after...
myself. There's a TV right over there where I can see myself, because I guess they have like a live feed of whoever's sitting up here. So it's like
you can check your angles.
I can check my angle. Yeah, actually, I'm just for fun. Can you see it? Oh, there you go. There,
interesting. Yeah.
There I am.
Yeah, Sheng has infiltrated the Colorado campus,
getting all the secrets of the 2022 Stanley Cup champs. But anyway, today we have a fun, interesting podcast. We're going to talk about, should the Sharks trade Mario Ferraro? More importantly, not the question of should, but if they were to trade him, what would be the kind of offer that would be reasonable, I guess. And so, yeah. And
as always, we're gonna start with a little bit of, news of the week, cover a little bit of what's going on with the Sharks since we last talked. We're going to talk a little bit about how the Sharks have been performing. Some murmurs about Couture and his injury, about the Jack Studnicka trade, Sturm going on IR, the scratching of Anthony Duclair tonight, and finally World Junior Championship talk before we get into the Ferraro trade. So it's going to be a fun episode. All right, where should we start? Last week we started with Sharks are good, ? And I think this week we could say Sharks are bad.
Not good, ?
Not good? Sharks are bad, ? Sharks are not good, ? I'm not wearing a jersey this week. I'm wearing a hoodie. I wasn't upset with anything the Sharks did. I think they needed to keep pace in the Macklin-Celebrini standings. But I'm certainly not happy, especially after the last two games.
They sure did, Joe.
Yeah, they definitely did in the last two games. They were a little bit hard to watch the last two. A little bit lifeless, I'd say, is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, at times. I mean, I think tonight was really a tough beat with bad calls that I wrote about. I, as you guys know, I'm very rarely about the referees and focusing on that, because I think that's often bullshit stuff. I mean, you lose because you're a bad team. The Sharks lost tonight because they're a bad team ultimately. If they were the Colorado Avalanche, maybe they could have overcome the bad calls. But when you are a bad team and you're playing the refs in the first 10 minutes of the game, that certainly doesn't help.
Yeah, and they had that glint in their eye that maybe they do those comebacks from last week at some point during this game, but it kind of just folded.
They scored some goals there, right? So yeah, Tommy Hertl made it close. Yeah, they actually played pretty. I mean, score effects and all that, but after McKinnon made it 4-0, they actually played pretty well. I think obviously the Avs likely took the foot off the pedal, which helped. Sure. But the Sharks started playing better hockey after that. And I think, one guy I just want to shout out just for the hustle. I guess we'll talk about with the Duclair stuff, but Justin Bailey. I might write about it, but I thought that he made a really underrated play to kind of get the Sharks going in the game. Of course, this was after they're down 4-0, but so a little late there, I guess. But anyway, I've liked how he's just in general how the Sharks have performed. We are seeing a better William Eklund than we did at the beginning of the season. Obviously, not just the Winnipeg one-timer, but another actually on Hertl's, I believe, second goal tonight. A great Eklund one-timer that Hertl was able to put, or maybe it was the first one. I don't remember which one of Hertl's power play goals, but
I think it was the second one.
Second one, yeah, off another beautiful Eklund one-timer. And slowly working on a story about that, just how he's upgraded that. With clips of not so flattering one-timers from last year from William, but also too, actually something else I'm working on is sort of the 5-on-5 piece. And I know a lot of people have mentioned he's ground a power play, but what about the 5-on-5, right? And so working a little bit on that too. Anyway.
Yeah, I think he's coming along, and even at 5-on-5, I think there's a lot that's improved, especially his board play and his physical play, which we've talked about a lot. But yeah, I think he's getting there, and I like it. Bailey was an interesting addition to the top line tonight after Duclair was scratched. His hustle is fantastic almost always. And I remember one play today where he kind of like sky hooked a puck accidentally instead of getting it on net, and he just like was beating himself up about it. And I don't know. It seemed like he does have he's very competitive, I think is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that knows. He's 28, so he knows that there's not going to be a lot of chances that the NHL can right there. And he's, I think he's playing like a guy that is every day trying to stay up here.
Yeah. The Coyotes game honestly was so boring. Like it was just like anyway, not to recap every single game, but I think that's part of the reasons why it just wasn't a very good week from a winning perspective.
I do want to shout out Granlund again. Overall, incredible play. Maybe not so much tonight, but I think a lot of the last few games. I couldn't believe I was tweeting this, but he's a guy now when he has the puck, I just watch. Like I'm drawn to it, and playing with so much confidence now. I don't know if it'll last. It's not. I was trying to think of other examples of guys in like 31 who suddenly turned to first line centers when they've been second or third line centers for their entire career. There's probably very few examples of that. So I don't know. He could just be on a heater now, but it is some heater though.
Yeah, he's doing the like the Connor McDavid walk through 4 people every game. It seems like like including the one that got called back against Arizona, but. Yeah, and he looks great we said this last week. He looks great on the power play at the top of the diamond there, which is unexpected from how bad it looked at the beginning of the year, and now how.
But like we talked about, he got hurt, right? And so now we can see why the Sharks thought that was a good idea because they thought that it would be healthy Mikael Granlund at the point there, and now they're getting that healthy Granlund, and he's been pretty good.
Yeah, be interesting to see as we get closer to trade deadline what the rumors are about Granlund, and
I think something could happen there. I think I will say we'll save this for another show, but Keegan and Hertl have been very, very valuable for Zetterlund, for Eklund. Part of it is those are both Hertl and Granlund are both excellent pros, but also too they're good players that are really elevating their line mates. I think both of them right now. And this is sort of the runway for guys like Eklund and Zetterlund to succeed in. And so I think that will give you some pause in just letting them go for anything, especially a Granlund who I think if he keeps this up or anything close to this, and I don't know if he will, caveat, career high, I think 60 something points or something like that, right? So right now he's, playing like a point per game player. And so I don't know if that's really him, but if it is though, at his contract, he's actually becomes a bargain, even if there's misgivings because he's been traded twice and he struggled in his new surroundings twice, right? And so that's gonna kind of lower his value a little bit. But overall, though, I think that is gonna be really interesting if he can kind of keep this up.
Yeah. The other idea is basically you keep him for another year because he's going to be even more movable. If he continues to be, playing to this level next year when he only has one more year left.
Or I'd say even close, right? Like no one's expecting him to be a point per game, but if he is the Granlund that the Penguins thought they were getting, a Granlund that scored 64 points 2 years ago, that's worth $5 million. That's a good second line center at least. So,
see if Boston comes knocking.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit about
another center.
Another center. Logan
and actually, we're actually all centers for our first couple of topics here.
Yeah, we are. We got Studnicka,
center
Couture,
of attention. Yeah.
Granlund, Hertl's been looking great as well, but we always
kind of taking for
let's
granted,
talk a little
right?
bit about Logan Couture. So there was some like a kind of I guess not bombshell article, but like a little bit of a article that came out that basically just said that he had experienced a very rough injury and there was like some dark thoughts about returning to play, basically, which is interesting.
I mean, let's clarify though that Logan had concerns that he'd never play again, but those are really his concerns. Like the medical staff, he explained it. Never thought that. It's just more about like you alluded to, just his mental state, right? And it was. He did open up a bit there about just sort of that mental state when you have an injury that there's no timeline. So
it was interesting to me just because it's pretty rare that NHLers, while they're still playing, kind of talk about the injuries that they're going through. Like, and we still don't know exactly
really
what the injury
didn't.
is. But just their mental status behind the injury, that's something that doesn't really come up a lot. Other than concussion stuff. Like concussion stuff gets mentioned a lot because players will come out and say, yeah, I get migraines nowadays. All the time. Yeah, and that's nowadays. As opposed to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But for this kind of injury, it's interesting. He's like, I don't know if I'm ever going to play again, but it seems like maybe we're getting closer to a Couture return. What do you think?
I believe so. He continues to skate. I checked today just to make sure because they keep saying that they're taking it day by day kind of. And so if he feels not good one day, which is kind of what happened in October when he had a setback, that he was skating a bit and he had even kind of jumped on after practice to skate around a little bit. And then he didn't feel good. And then they shut him down for basically the month of November. But he continues to skate, and it looks like he's doing harder skating. I think on Thursday, I put out video of Jumbo was helping him out. Aaron Dell was out there, right? Pretty cool video, but he was skating pretty hard. He skated 45 minutes. So it wasn't just the video that I showed you. He was doing some hard skating too. And so, hopefully he can come back, even just for his mental state, obviously, right? You don't want a player to be on the shelf with whatever injury that he has. But anyway, on his injury, I will say that I don't want to give away too much, but I'm working on it. I have some sense of what it is, but I've been also refuted a couple times. So I think I have a general idea, but I want to be sure before I say it. I may not get a chance to before it comes out. But anyway, I know a lot of fans are wondering, how come they're not being forthcoming? How come we don't know what his injury is, right? And I don't know the answer to that specifically, but sure. I am doing my job and trying to figure it out.
I guess the joke among Sharks fans is that Joe Thornton was day-to-day with like an ACL tear once.
That was a knee. That was a knee injury. Was it? Oh, no, ACL was a knee, right?
ACL tear.
Yeah. So I remember that.
So that's the
2018 playoffs. He kept coming out for warm-ups. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is regular season though, so I don't know if there's quite this reason to be quite this secretive, but maybe we will learn that there was a reason for it.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I'm excited though. That video with Jumbo gave me a lot of joy. It's good to see the old guys back, and I like Jumbo's retirement plan of just kind of do whatever you want, man. That's kind of it. He's just like hanging out. If he wants to be on the ice one day, sure. If he wants to, not be around the arena for like 3 months at a time and be somewhere else, be in Switzerland. Yeah,
I love his go-to hat too. A lot of people have commented on it. That he went with the reverse retro seals, a hat that he never actually got to, or cap that he actually never got to wear, which is kind of a shame because obviously Joe Thornton in his 40s, he was. No, I want to say he wasn't alive when the Seals were about the same age. But he's If anyone was gonna rock a Seals jersey,
should be Jumbo.
He would have looked great. He would have looked great in it. So.
Yeah. Speaking of more centers, Sturm is on IR. What's going on? What's going on with Nico Sturm first, and then we'll talk a little bit about the trade that probably was inspired by Nico Sturm.
Yeah, I believe it is hand or wrist. Based on the video that I've seen and other things. I think a fan mentioned that he saw ice pack on it right after the injury, after Sturm got tangled in the boards. But even without that, which I can't verify that eyewitness account, but just he came out to practice on Thursday, but without a stick. I mean, what does that mean? So so there's a good chance that that's roughly where it is. It is week to week, it sounds like, and they're not sure. So it could be worse, it could be better. Hopefully he comes back soon, because he's a big part of sort of what the Sharks are trying to do in terms of just trying to be competitive. And obviously we know Nico is a guy that works his ass off. Again, case in point, Thursday, he's injured. He's clearly not playing. He's probably not traveling. He comes out and he skates the entirety of after practice. When Couture came out, Carpenter was out there too. Lindblom was out there, and I wish I had taken video of it. It was actually funny. Like Logan would be taking breakaways, and Sturm would be following him, mimicking Couture, and pretending like he had a stick. So when Couture would shoot, Nico would shoot too, and that's the kind of guy that you want your young players to see that kind of dedication to staying fit, to watching the best players out there, like Nico is doing, trailing Logan there, and just a whole bit of it. I thought was really really cool. But in terms of Studnicka, who the Sharks acquired. Tonight was a little bit of a rough peak for him too, with all the travel he's been on, and both Jack and Quinn agree that he just didn't really have a pop legs. I did see though, definitely worked hard. Made some good defensive plays, but couldn't get much going offensively, and hoping to see more of that from him. And I think also too, I think it's interesting that how responsive Greer has been in the last month or so to sort of the obvious needs of the Sharks. After 12 or so games, right, the Sharks clearly needed a power play option that wasn't a power play quarterback option, right? They're using Kyle Burrows there, and no offense to Kyle, great guy, works hard, but he's not a PP1, not even probably PP2 in the NHL, but PP1. Sure. I mean, that was a real reach. And it was affecting other parts of his game, at least according to him and Quinn, that when you're trying to put pressure on yourself to be this guy that you're not, you start to kind of lose focus on the stuff that you're actually good at. And 100%. So Greer picked up Addison. I think a part of the Addison deal was just like with Studnicka, is a guy with some upside, a guy that can do specifically what you need. Addison can run a power play, and also too, the acquisition cost is reasonable. No one is suggesting that Micro should trade a first-round pick to bring in, or even a second-round pick to bring in an Adam Boqvist or whoever, right? If that's the cost for Boqvist. But Addison, a fifth-round pick, and Raska, not a high-end prospect, for Studnicka, a sixth-round pick, and Chychrun, a guy that's kind of fallen out of favor also. These are the kind of trades that you have to make to just be fair to your team, to be fair to David Quinn, so he doesn't need to keep putting out Zadina and Cunnin as centers, guys who are wingers first, keep putting out Burrows on his power play. And it's kind of a contrast to the preseason, where when I directly asked Greer, what are you going to do about your power play here? You don't have a quarterback. and Mike's not stupid. He knows what he has, but his answers will I'm always going to laugh at it. He's just like, we'll see.
Yeah, maybe I kind of like that though. Like, he's being a little, like, he's addressing the needs as they come.
I like what he's doing now. Yeah. Giving the dozen games of runway there, that wasn't fair. I mean, even though
helps in the tankathon, man.
It does. But even though I asked Quinn about his job security, I mean, that 0-10-1 start was not helped by having a power play quarterback, your number one power play quarterback, be a guy that hasn't been on a power play since the AHL, and I think probably second unit power play at best in the AHL. It's not even Jacob McDonald, who at least was a top AHL PP quarterback at the very least. It wasn't even that would have been valid, but Jacob was hurt for a lot of that first dozen games or so. And so I understand what you're saying about the tank, but you can't.
No, I was mostly tongue in cheek there.
Yeah, but
it was pretty bad.
It's almost disrespectful to your guys who are working. You're trying to tell your guys to work their ass off, right? For not much reward in terms of wins, right? But you're not giving them anything to work, not even any upside. And so Addison, you understand, like, okay, he's not Erik Karlsson. We all get that, but he's a guy that's young, has obvious talent, and he can get better. Okay, I get why he's here. Studnicka, same thing. He's not Nico Sturm right now. He's not Logan Couture, but he's young, he's got upside, and he actually plays the position that we need help in. And you can see it from Grier's side too, that of course you don't want to give up a lot. And so no one is, again, expecting him to give up a first, a second for William Nylander or whatever, some pie in the sky solution to your problems, right? But 6th round pick, everyone's like, oh, why give up a 6 for a guy who was on waivers? Different roster situation than a month ago. Studnicka was on waivers a month ago. Sharks didn't claim him. Also, too, and I wrote about this, the Sharks are pretty up on contracts. They have 49, I think. Teams, that's a big deal. You're only allowed 50 of them. So teams like to make trades one in, one out in terms of contracts. And so Chychrun, who had less value than Studnicka, and arguably maybe even negative value in terms of just where he is as a prospect right now, you had to probably attach something a little for the Canucks.
Yeah, but you also don't need to move because he doesn't affect the cap. Like, other than he does affect the roster limit, but he doesn't affect the cap. So you don't have to move Chychrun. So
no, you have to. No, for the contracts. No, you do have to because then.
Oh yeah. I meant if you're going to make the trade.
Contracts, yeah.
If you're going to make the trade, yes. But I'm saying, like, he in his inherent self doesn't have negative value because he doesn't affect the cap of the Sharks. The only thing that it has negative value is the contract value slot.
Is the con. Well, he's a player with a contract slot that right now is not performing at a contract slot level, even with the Barracuda, to be honest, right? And so that's negative value. Studnicka actually is at least an NHL caliber player,
of course.
Fringy but NHL caliber, and also is helpful in the AHL too. If he's very helpful, he's a top line player.
But you could also wait 5 months, and then you have enough contract slots to do probably whatever you want, unless and I think this also goes back to of course, yeah. I'm just saying the other argument is you basically because you want to make it a little more fair for your team, like you mentioned, because you want to make it a more well-rounded roster, even a losing season that's probably not going to make the playoffs. You then still wasted assets. So there is an argument that maybe it wasn't if you're nitpicking that much, it's that's the argument against.
Well, let me nitpick back though. You're talking about picks that are so replaceable. 6th, 5th. The Sharks are going to get back at the deadline probably. I mean, again, this is not. I get it if it's a first, a second. If you want to even complain about Cunnin for a 3rd, I mean, 3rd is still it's a decent pick, but a 6th, a 5th, those are so, especially the Addison one. The 5th, I think, is in 2026 or something like that. Sharks are going to have multiple 5ths in that time if they want to. They may not want to, but so that's you lost an asset, but you're going to replace that asset in no time. Again, we're not talking about assets are hard to replace. A 2nd for Adin Hill, you can kill the Sharks for that. A 3rd for Cunnin. I like Cunnin, but I understand why that's sort of an issue. But a 6th, I was told this actually when the Sharks traded for Lane Peterson, which they traded a 4th for a guy that I don't think scored a goal with the Sharks, right? It's terrible for the Sharks, to be honest, right? All in all.
Yeah,
but
it was very bad.
I remember the 4th was so far in, I think it was 2024, the 4th, and the trade
probably
was
coming up this
Peterson.
Year.
Yeah, but the trade was for the Peterson played for the Sharks the 2021-22 season. And so executive told me just straight up, it doesn't matter. It's not something that matters. The Sharks are going to recoup that 4th easily, especially in the future. As we know, the later in the future a pick is, the less value it has, because you're going to be able to recoup that, especially if it's a non-premium pick.
There's also a difference between recouping and then you could just have an extra one. You don't need to just
Well, I get what you're saying, but then with the Studnicka though and Addison, you get a guy that can fill the role, is respectful to the rest of the team that's working their ass off, right? And also too has some upside. They can work on. Addison maybe is going to pan out to be a good player. NHL, a playoff caliber player. Studnicka is still young enough that there's that runway there, right? So it's not like they're throwing 6th round picks at 34-year-old center just to fill a spot, right? And so
I think that's a big difference.
That's a big difference. I actually remember years ago as a Kings fan, and this is so long ago, I may not have all the details right, but I remember like they had like a year where they had to play 7 goalies. This is like 15 years ago. You can look it up. Sean Burke was one of them. And that's how long ago it was, because Sean is now the goaltending director for Vegas. But anyway, I think they tossed the pick. They had to play like 7 goalies that year, and they were so injured that eventually they traded a pick for Sean Burke. And I think Sean Burke, that was his last stop as an NHL goalie, I think. And so he's like 40 years old. And they traded like maybe a 5th for that. Let me make sure about that. But, and I get in that case, like, there'll be a little more, even though the Kings back then, this is 2006-07, I'm looking up right now, Burke was 40, and the Kings are doing what they can. They've had so many goaltending injuries that year, and just be respectful. And actually I was wrong, they just picked them off the waivers, so I'm wrong about that, but I'm sure we can find examples of like 30 something guys that and I can understand the Sharks fans, why give anything up for this guy, right? But you're giving it up for Addison, 23, Studnicka, 24. Also fits in the philosophy that we've seen with Greer in terms of taking chances. Zadina, 2018 pick, right? Taking swings on these guys that are really highly regarded in those draft years, right? But now they're up against waivers or up against all that kind of stuff, right? RFA status, all that kind of stuff, right? And okay, there's going to be a good chance, not a guaranteed opportunity, as we've seen. Zadina got sent down to the 4th line, but not a guaranteed chance. But you can get a pretty good opportunity at some pretty good playing time, and let's see what we can do with it.
Yeah, I personally have no problem with the trade. I think it was fine. I just was saying the argument against it is that you're a rebuilding team. They're
not very good arguments, though. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Well, it is still an argument, though. They're a rebuilding team. You need as many shots at the dartboard as possible, or darts at the dartboard as possible.
You're going to get those shots anyway, though, right? And then, okay, let's talk about
minus
the rebuilding.
one.
Let's talk about the rebuilding aspect, right? So you're going to tell William Eklund, who's working his ass off, that he's got to throw it back to the point, and it's Kyle Burrows. Again, no offense to Kyle Burrows. What does that do for the rebuild?
Well, there's also a huge difference between Calen Addison and Jack Studnicka in my mind, because Calen Addison is like a very, very, very clear need. Jack Studnicka is a 4th line / AHL player, and he's 24, but like that's what he is right now. He's been that since he's come into the league, and he might turn into something more than that. But like you could probably either find that guy off of waivers any given week of the NHL, or B, go sign a guy if you want to. Go sign Joe Thornton. I don't care. Not really Joe Thornton, but like a guy that's like farther on his career if you really needed to have a 4th line / AHL player. So that's the argument against. It's like I think Calen Addison is perfectly reasonable. Yeah, maybe. And there is a good point to that too. Like there is way more likelihood, there's at least a smaller likelihood that he could turn into something important than 35-year-old whoever they sign off the streets kind of thing. But
right, and again, you mentioned the pick, but the pick is so replaceable, and that is the philosophy. I'm not just like kind of trying to defend the Sharks. A lot of the guy who told me was a team executive. That's just the philosophy. That the picks like that, those are just dime a dozen.
Of course,
that's why you trade a 5th for Nick Bonino or whatever. Or that was what. That's what I think. What I don't remember how that came along. Pittsburgh or Montreal or whatever, right? But anyway, though, like you just give those up. A guy can help for the team that's giving up that 5th. You get a guy that can help you, win a playoff round, win a playoff game, whatever, right? And you're gonna recoup that 5th, if not this year, next year, or you can recoup at the draft.
There's a lot of ways.
These aren't any picks to worry about. I get what you're saying about the shots, but like.
That's the argument, but I think it's fine just because how young he is, and also not that he's like gonna turn into much, but it's still a fine bet. And there's also the whole Mikey Eyssimont philosophy where you picked him off waivers and turned him into a 4th round pick. Like who knows? Maybe it's Jack Studnicka's turn to turn into something more than a waiver claim. So and he's already done well on that kind of. We kept calling it like dumpster diving or garbage bin hunting, but he's already done that already with like Emberson and with Eyssimont, like guys off waivers or dudes who are waiver claims that he's turned into good assets. So
that could be fine. That was lost with Addison can be up because Raska is not much of we can agree, is not much of a prospect loss, right? Chychrun is not, and you get rid of an NHL contract, right? Which the Sharks were, happy to do, and maybe sorry that they gave out. I don't want to say sorry, but like just like that, like didn't work out. To the best possible outcome. These NHL contracts, right? And so ready to move on from these guys, right? And you can turn that fifth into something better from Addison in the future. And Studnicka, if his ceiling's not high, but can he be maybe a 3C one day? If he does become a 3C one day, then that's pretty valuable. That is going to be worth a lot more than a 6. And so, it's nitpicking. Yeah, it's
because you also have him under control as well, because he's an RFA after whatever. So I think it's fine. Because there is something to be said that even in the future, if you keep Studnicka, that maybe he does fill the specific niche of needing your fourth line or call-up guy.
If he becomes a good, really like a playoff caliber fourth line center, like a Nico Sturm, then that's going to be a well worth a trade. And then again, the other part about it is like, how can you keep telling your Tomas Hertls and your William Eklunds, like, you got to keep working hard when you're not giving them anything to work with? When you look over, like, we have two guys there who shouldn't be playing center, and Zadina and Cunnin, and you guys can't.
Yeah, Zadina at center was an interesting. I mean, there's no choice. It was just interesting to see that written down on the roster sheet.
It's actually been okay. I'm actually writing about that. But that's another topic. We should I
just didn't expect it. I did not.
After Sturm went down, it made sense. So I don't know. I think it made sense to me.
I think Quinn made a comment after the game that Studnicka didn't have his legs under him. He even made the comment too.
They both did. Yeah.
One game doesn't really mean much. He didn't stand out, but it's literally one game, so we'll have to see.
Yep.
I think it's fine. That's my trade grade is fine.
I agree. I'm not trying to say it's the heist of the century. I just don't get why anybody would be upset about it. The waivers part I kind of get, but I think I explained that in my story. And about giving up the pick, though, again, that pick is just doesn't. If you want to recoup that, you're gonna recoup that pick like so easily. And so those
and the other thing, like if you're sitting there in the 6th round, this happens every single year, 6th and 7th rounds, like you just trade
you trade back. So because it's I don't like who's here.
Or like the team will be like, we're done with
our Doug Jr., right?
Just kept we're done with our draft book. Do you want our
another year, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if you really got a guy that you really want there, they'll find a way to pick him. But I still because I am a draft guy, I like just the thought of having so many draft picks. It makes me happy.
Again, you're gonna get them, So.
Oh, I know.
The Sharks are playing better, so you're gonna get your pick some way somehow. So.
Yeah. Anyway, the first non-center to talk about is Anthony Duclair. We're not gonna. I don't know how much you have to say about this scratch, but Anthony Duclair was a healthy scratch. This tonight against the Avalanche. Was this specifically one single play that did it, or was this kind of like a total call?
No, I should have asked actually. Yeah, actually that would have been good. I didn't ask. I meant to ask because Quinn said he actually let the cat out of the bag, not to us, but he let it. He told Dan Ruzanowski on, I think it's what's the show called? Their I don't remember, but the morning show. One, anyway.
I can't remember.
Sorry, but anyway, it's a show that Dan does after or before every game. But basically, he said that that play was a big part of it, and obviously it hurt the Sharks because they lost 1-0. But there was other things that they've been wanting from him, and so I think maybe that play was how do you say it? Straw that broke the camel's back a little bit, right?
Sure.
So no, it wasn't just one play. Personally, I think it's what you need to do. Actually, if we talk about rebuilding and whatnot, right? Like that's an example that you need to show Fabian Zetterlund, William Eklund, down the line that kind of And I didn't see in the replay, and I didn't see it live because I was watching Granlund, deke people out. Zetterlund gained his zone, and on a play, Zetterlund did a good job on that play too. So I wasn't watching Duclair, so I honestly don't know, but that's what they saw, and I had to imagine that for them that must be pretty much accurate, because otherwise he would have been playing tonight, Duclair. That's a pretty big step to scratch a guy of his caliber, of his his name brand kind of, right. And so sure. I think it's great. I think that it's, again, not to like put him in a doghouse or put him back the next game, but you need to show, especially rebuilding. This isn't game 77 and you're trying to make the playoffs. You need your best. Right. Sure. You're 2 points out of playoffs, 5 games left in the season. You're not worried about setting examples or teaching lessons. Mm-hmm. You're just putting your best players out there. But this is a rebuilding year, and this is the right example to show that even a Anthony Duclair can get scratched, or even a William Eklund can get benched for a period or two. Right. I think this is exactly what you need to do as a coach to mold the right players.
Yeah, there's when Sharks were the more dominant last week, I think there were times when Duclair looked really, really good. He looked engaged. He had a little bit more drive, I think, to his game. So I don't know if it was all there in the game that he played, the Coyotes game, and then but he has been putting up more points. So there is that. He has.
Yeah, but if you want to talk about pure points, though, he had a nice little tear in the tri-state games. He had 5 points in 3 games there, but in the last 4 games, just 1 assist. So
might be time for a sit down, especially when guys like Granlund are being consistently better than they were in the beginning of the season, and he's kind of been up and down still. So maybe it'll get a little bit more consistency out of him. All right. Final Sharks news roundup is my favorite topic. It's the World Junior Championship coming in about 10 days, I think, is the start date from now.
Yeah, right after Christmas, December 26th.
Yeah, it's going to be a amazing tournament. We have finally gotten some rosters, which include for Team Canada, Jake Furlong. For Team Sweden, we have Matthias Havlid. Philip Stats. For Team USA, we have Will Smith and Eric Polkamp. Team Finland, we have Kasper Halttunen confirmed as well. I'm very excited. I am super pumped for Furlong. I basically went on a little bit of a dive trying to figure out how likely it was to see if Jake Furlong was going to make this team. Because there was a lot of reports. People were saying that they liked his stuff, and there's been we've talked about this for a couple of months, that his improvement has been pretty impressive the past year. So I went out and I paid Hockey Canada $15 to watch the U Sports versus Team Canada live stream. The U Sports versus Team Canada warm up live stream. 15 Canadian, so it's like $11 in America. And it's only in French, so I understood absolutely none of it because I don't speak French. But I enjoyed every minute of it. And
this is commitment, guys.
This is commitment. You got to do what you got to do to watch the games for prospects.
This is the kind of commitment you get on the San Jose Hockey Now podcast.
And I watched Furlong games. He looked good. He has a specific role, and I think people didn't understand that coming in, because people looked at Furlong and went, "Who the hell's Furlong?" Like sitting next to Matejchuk.
Right, he doesn't have the points, right? He's not Cagnoni, right?
Yeah, he's not Cagnoni. He doesn't have this like offensive power of Ty Nelson or whatever. But he plays a role of a tournament winning defender, which is a guy that's going to be in your bottom pairing, but going to be on your first penalty kill. It's going to allow your rest of your guys that are actually going to play on the power play to like put up points and run roughshod over the ice, where he's just kind of there to cool things down. And it's an interesting role for him, because on Halifax,
he might be playing
he's like
the Patrick Swayze role, cooler, Roadhouse. So.
In Roadhouse, yeah. He's just there to chill out, Like, it's not that he doesn't he plays a much more active offensive role for Halifax because he's kind of like your do-it-all defenseman there. But on this team, I think he's going to be kind of that steady as it goes kind of guy, and I like that.
I gotta ask you though about watching you. What can you get out of that? Because for me, guys, when I watch action, like let's say I'm watching AHL game, I'm trying to figure out if this play means anything. Like Gushin does something right. What I always look at is who he did it to, and if he does it to some AHL lifer or some guy that is going to be in the ECHL next week. I don't pay any mind. I don't even comment on it because it's like, well, he did it to somebody that he maybe kind of should do it to. But if a Gushin is doing something spectacular against a Dustin Wolf or some other top-notch defenseman that's going to have a long AHL career, then that's like, okay, that means something. And so what can you get from watching Furlong dominate U Sports?
Well, he did. So he didn't. So this was the specific team. This was specifically the Team Canada like selection camp against the U Sports. And
I understand
the first
that.
game, so the first game, Team Canada actually won. The second game, they lost like 6-1 against U Sports. So, I think the guys are also older that come from the U Sports. So it's like they're playing up in age.
They're playing NCAA, but worse kind of.
Basically, but most of the dudes are older.
Okay.
And I wasn't really looking for like what he's doing against who he's playing against. It's more just how he fits on that team and why he's being put in those situations. Exactly. Okay. So that's what I was looking for, was the role that he's been asked to play. And I was like, does he fill it better than all those other dudes are filling it? And the answer was yes. And that's why I thought he might make it. And he did. So
I bet no other San Jose Sharks podcasts or media, right, or anybody paid to watch Jake Furlong U Sports. So again, this is the kind of commitment that
I find some very interesting ways to watch Sharks prospects because it's not as easy as you think. I pay for
no, I know it's not easy. That's why like easy. I'm laughing, but I also am giving you full props for your Nico Sturm like effort to watch.
We're grinding
the
here.
The full breadth of the Sharks prospectdom.
Yeah, we're grinding here. Once you start paying
you're
for,
grinding.
Like,
I'm not spending $10 for that.
Once you start paying for Swedish J20 hockey subscriptions, you have a
problem, right?
So. Yeah, exactly. But I enjoy it. So it honestly it's just because it was such a cool little. It's something different. Like I can watch CHL games all the time, and they're kind of very the same. This was just.
Were you paying for all Svenskin games when Jonathan Dolan was tearing it up there?
No, I didn't. I did not.
Okay.
I don't think I had as much. I don't think I had as much disposable income then. Like not that I have a ton now, but like I think I was a lot poorer.
Well, you gotta have a lot if you can. If you're spending U Sports, so.
I mean, that $11 American is burning a hole, but that is kind of ridiculous for like one game.
That's pretty high, yeah, for one game. I mean,
yeah. Anyway, Jake Furlong made it. Where also Eric Polkamp made it, which we thought he might, and it's been confirmed that they liked him. Which is kind of cool. I'm actually really excited to see his
do you
role.
think he'll play a lot? I don't know too much about the rest of the
I think so. I think he's going to end up being their bottom right D. I think so.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's going to be him or Renzel, and I think they'll switch out a little bit, but I think it'll end up being him. So.
Okay.
We're going to try and get a little bit of a preview show before the World Junior Championship, probably our next podcast. So,
and one more note too, and it's actually speaking to the theme of Furlong and where guys fit on a team being more important than just pure skill or pure points or whatever, right? So let's go back to the tale of Quentin Musty. And I reached out to Chris Peters, where everyone knows Chris Peters, needs no introduction. And I asked him about why Musty didn't make Team USA in his opinion. And this isn't that far from what I drove Keegan to his knees to agree with the last podcast. But Chris texted me. He wasn't going to supplant any forward in the top 9, and he's certainly not going to kill penalties or be a fourth-line guy. The depth of this USA forward group is exceptional, so it was a tough year to try to make it. He has a good shot next year.
Wow. That's honestly pretty much exactly what I said.
That's what you said after I drove you to it, all right?
Yeah. If anybody knows Chris Peters, he knows a lot about this Team USA team. So I think that kind of puts it in there. He'll make it next year. Like there's so many guys that are not going to be on that forward group that he's definitely going to probably be in the top 6 next year.
He's giving you the face, the smiling face right now to us, but in the inside, the tears are flowing. So
you talking about me?
Yeah, that meme.
I just wanted like one more like high-end offensive prospect because I'm super pumped for guys like Furlong and Polkamp to make it. And we're gonna see Will Smith up against the best, which is gonna be great. But I wanted like one more guy to watch. But
anyway. Too bad Quentin Musty is not Danish or something like that, or German. He would have made it.
I do think Bstad's gonna do very well, but we'll talk more about it on our preview thing probably next week.
Sounds good. Yeah, let's get to the meat of the episode.
All right, so we're going to talk about a potential Mario Ferraro trade and the pluses, the minuses, maybe some of the comps of what defensemen like him get traded for the past decade or so. And just what scouts have to say about the idea of a Mario Ferraro trade, or what people you've been talking to.
Sure. Well, I'm going to go first. I said this actually the last episode a bit, but I love Mario Ferraro. I love the intangibles. I actually think he is an underrated player. So first with the intangibles, I reference stuff like in practice in Florida, they were practicing. He and William Eklund were going hard at each other, and they were. It was unusual for a practice. And then after the drill ended, Ferraro was banging on Eklund's shin pads, not to hurt him, but just to tell. And I asked them both about it, and Ferraro was just saying, like, I was fucking telling him that he's so good, do that in a game.
Yeah.
And I love that story. And then there's a story I told about Dave Allison, his coach at Des Moines Buccaneers, before Ferraro got drafted, USHL, and they're doing drills, and Ferraro's skating his ass off after the drill is over to get back into the line. Only guy was doing that. And so Allison asked him, why are you skating so hard back to the line? You don't need to. And Ferraro says, I'm just trying to get some extra conditioning in. So many examples that even tonight, Mike Hoffman, late hit, and Ferraro, without a dot, takes on Curtis McDermott is, with all due respect, he's a monster. I covered McDermott when he was Ontario Reign. It's
a rough out.
He is not he's probably the last guy. He could arguably be the last guy you want to take on in the NHL. Because not only is he huge, but he's mean. And some guys are just big, right? He's mean too. And so Ferraro, I think, is McDermott's good 6 inches taller. McDermott is a heavyweight. He's just not a guy that you mess with. And Ferraro goes right at him, and he gets the extra minor, which I thought was a very, very bad call. And Ferraro said after the game, I would take that penalty and the extra. Even obviously, Ferraro didn't agree with the extra penalty, but he would do that all day long, and you love that kind of attitude. And it's not just about he's likable or whatever, right? It's also about how that influences and affects and teaches and grows other young players on your team. And so I think that this is so valuable with him. The piece about him as a player, and I've said this many times, and people do disagree with me on this. So I'm going to get to that in a second. But I think on a good team that he is a middle pairing defender. He is not a top number one defenseman. He is with the Sharks out of necessity, and that's tough on him, I think. But I think he's a very good. He is a very good one-on-one defender, because he is fast. He is strong. And he, I think, is a smart defender. I think he does get lost in the team defense, right? He does do too much that a lot of times, but that happens when your team is not good and you take it upon yourself to try to change things, right? And he's not Erik Karlsson, so it doesn't often work out. And so I think that's something that he has to work on, whatever team he's on, the Sharks or a much better team, that he has to work on playing within himself more. And I actually think he's done that, actually a pretty good job of that the last few weeks or so. But anyway, so that's what I think his ceiling is. And so in terms of just like I think he can be a good defensive middle pairing defenseman. Obviously, you want to pair him up with a better puck mover because he's not a great puck mover. But even with that, though, I think he makes a good first pass, and he does.
Sure.
Yeah, he skates well, so that does help him attack the net and do things like that. And so he does. He's not totally lost offensively, and he's not bad with the puck. Some defensemen we see, and Sharks have a couple of them, to be honest, that are not good with the puck. And so if you can't make that first pass 99% of the time, you're going to have problems no matter how big, how physical, whatever you are, right? And that's not a problem that Ferraro has. So he makes a good first pass usually too. So I don't know. Should I talk first? Do you want to first hear about what scouts are saying, or do you want just my opinion of what the sort of?
Well, I guess
the trade value I agree with for Ferraro.
We'll talk about, I guess, what the scouts say about Ferraro's trade value, but I agree with most of what you're saying. He's a great skater. He's great in the locker room. I think the more that we talk about Ferraro, the more
he's
that
fantastic in the locker room. Let's give him. Yeah. He's not just
the more
great
I'm moving away from trading him for. And also, this is to spoil a little bit later on, but the trades that have come out about, or in the past decade, related to him, like players like him, most of them, I would say no to. So that kind of says something about what I think his value is too. I have been hard on him because I think he has been put into situations that don't benefit him. So, yeah, but let's hear a little bit about what other people have to think about, or what have to say about him.
Okay, so this will delight people who aren't Mario Ferraro fans, but it is not unanimous that people think what I think about him. That this is a guy that is a sort of a middle pairing, can be a middle pairing guy, that sort of thing, right? Some of the scouts I talked to, they like him as a not a bad bottom pairing guy, but like as a really, really good bottom pairing guy. As a playoff caliber bottom pairing guy. I like him better than that, obviously. And it does actually speak to what I've suspected about, and I'll get to this a little bit more in terms of one of the comp trades that I've seen in recent years for a guy like Ferraro. But I wonder if there is a little bit of the Sharks are hoping for more for Ferraro in a trade than because it's not unanimous. Like I said, this isn't like a Tomas Hertl when Tomas Hertl was coming to free agency, where I didn't talk to anybody who did not like Hertl, did not think a lot of him, whether they thought he was a true first line center or more of a second line. But for
you're getting a first
really
round pick plus for Hertl,
right?
A first round pick plus.
Timo Meier, same thing, right?
Exactly.
Right. And so that's what I've been hearing. Yeah, that's what I've been hearing for years about Ferraro. And so that's why I thought it was kind of curious, that report by Elliot Friedman, just teams gunning for him and Carolina coming hard. But what does that mean by sort of like the offer? Like, how good are these offers really is my question. And so there are scouts out there we've talked to who are more in the line of what I think, that he could be a pretty good middle pairing defenseman with the right environment around him. But either way, though, like I said, it's not unanimous, right? I think that's the overall point of it. This isn't one of those things where Tommy, where everyone's in agreement around the league about the caliber of the player we're talking about. And so in terms of just the general sort of values I got back, and we'll talk about sort of comps in a second, but a couple of scouts said, yeah, I can see a second round pick for Ferraro. Like that's sort of their value. Oh, actually too, I wanted to also promote our buddy Jason Demers. He did something called a Mic'd Up recently. You can see it on his Twitter, where basically you ask him questions on this app called Mic'd Up, and he'll answer it directly.
Cool.
And so anyway, I used the opportunity because he asked me if I had asked him a question on it, and so I said, well, this is a good chance to ask Jason Demers, long 700 games in NHL as a defenseman, what he thinks about Ferraro. And he said that he saw Ferraro also in the same way as a very, very, very good bottom pairing guy. If we're thinking about a championship caliber bottom pairing guy like maybe like a Matt Green, that's one guy that comes to mind for me. That kind of caliber of player, even though they're different type of players. But he said that considering everything with Ferraro, his intangibles, all that kind of stuff, and let's not forget Ferraro's 25, he can very, very much be part of the next good Sharks team. His age range, I mean, he's a year older than Fabian Zetterlund, and no one's talking about trading Fabian Zetterlund. Right, everyone's happy with a found gold with Fabian Zetterlund. Yeah. So anyway,
I mean, he has more points than Timo Meier.
He does. So Demers also said that for himself, he's thinking more along the lines of what he would take, not what he thinks the value is, but more he would take a first or a second. So that's his thought of that. But I guess before we get to trade comps, though, I think for myself, going on along with what Demers, Jason was talking about, and this is a rich ask, and I don't think you're getting it because, and I think again that's why. I'm not.
You've lost your background. No, you're not.
Well,
you're just a guy with a really big TV.
Yeah. Now I've got the blue screen behind me. Yeah, so connecting.
Guys, we gotta finish this podcast soon.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm being told here. I think. Anyway, though, so I lost my thought. I lost my mojo when I lost the.
Basically,
there you go.
What would you take?
Thank you. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, going with what I was told by multiple people that, second round at best is kind of what they're thinking, right? I wouldn't take just a second for Mario, just because I think the intangibles are real, and he can be part of the next good Sharks team. And I think all those things combined, that if you're taking him for fair market value, which I think is fair, I'm not saying he's a better player than that necessarily. I think he can be, but we don't know that because for one part, he hasn't been put in a position to be better, but also too, he just hasn't been. He hasn't risen above sort of his circumstances. And so I think a second is a fair market value, but I don't see a point in taking that for a guy that I like so many of his intangibles. I think he has upside, like I said. So I think so. I understand people don't think so, or I understand that it's split, but I believe he has upside, and he is young enough to be part of your next good team. And so why trade that for anything less than a first? But again, I don't know if you would get that, but there is a comp that I'll get to where it is actually possible. And so maybe that's what the Sharks are hoping for. They're hoping that someone will sort of, around the trade deadline, someone might buckle. But anyway, sorry, I've been raving about my Mario love for my Mario man crush for a while here. So what do you think, Keegan?
So were there any other realistic things that people said, or was it kind of like second round pick is like the max kind of thing, or were people just like, or some people saying like fourth, fifth, whatever?
No one really said fourth or fifth. I mean,
third, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, third. I mean, when you say second at best, right? Then that's sort of like, oh, maybe you'll get an offer of a third, but you don't have to take it, So I think second was sort of the generally consensus of like the best thing you would get. If a team really liked him and really wanted him on their bottom pairing, to really solidify that for playoff run. But that's another thing. That's another curious part though about the Friedman report. If I'm not saying this is it's really half the league, but if half the league thinks that Mario Ferraro is a bottom pairing defense, even if a really good bottom pairing defenseman, $3.25 million is a lot for a bottom pairing defenseman, I think. I don't, and so that doesn't make sense to me. Like, if you think he's a middle pairing guy, then $3.25 million makes sense then, and that's becomes a very very easy to stomach. But $3.25 million for a bottom pairing guy, that actually detracts from his value, and so there's something to me about all that. Like, so I guess I'm saying Sharks fans, if you're thinking that you're going to get a mint for Ferraro based on the Friedman report, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure about that. whether or not you like the return for Meyer. I know a lot of people didn't when it happened. They thought that the Sharks should have got more or whatnot.
Looks
right?
good now.
But it was a lot, though. It was a lot of stuff, though, right? Whether there was not maybe an elite piece or whatever, right? But there was a lot of stuff, right? So anyway, so I'm not sure if you get that for all. I could be wrong. Like I said, I have one comp that I found really interesting. So do you want to get to that?
Yeah, go ahead. I will talk a little bit about the comps that I found, and this isn't an all inclusive list. I'm sure there's many more, but these are just guys that I saw that were. But go ahead, go with the one that you're thinking of.
I looked the last 5 years at defensemen that were traded for first or second round picks, and sort of what kind of defensemen they were and that sort of thing, right? Oh, and I did want to add too that oftentimes when I ask scouts trade values, I usually just ask them draft pick values because that's sort of easier. Yeah. And also too, scouts don't want to talk about specific players, especially specific players for their own team, because that becomes sort of a dangerous sort of game for them. If they're sort of found out, or if it's leaked, or if someone looks on my laptop one day and sees who I'm talking to, or whatever, right? And so usually we just kind of keep it with draft pick values. It just gives a good sense. If you think you get a second round pick for a player, well, then you can kind of equate an actual player or prospect to that too, right? And so anyway, I just wanted to add that note. So looking at recent trades where it was a pretty direct trade for the defenseman, not like the Erik Karlsson, the recent one the Sharks did with the Penguins. That's too convoluted, right, to even compare, right?
Of course, yeah.
Right, but pretty direct trades, right? I think even a little convoluted, but the Provorov trade is this summer. The Chychrun trade last year was pretty direct in terms of just assets in, assets out, right? No third team involved, that sort of thing, right? So Chychrun got a first and a conditional second and another second, right? So possible another first, I guess, but basically 1 first and 2 seconds, right? Filip Hronek is another one. Basically went for a first and a second. Let's see, there are a couple more down the line I wanted to get to before I get to some kind of contrasting examples. Orlov went for a good amount last year. There was their team involved to help reduce the salary, but the Caps got back a first, a second, a third.
Damn, good trade.
Yeah, so these it gives you a sense of what, and you look at the minutes that Ferraro plays, and he plays as many minutes as these guys. Maybe not quite as much. He's not a power play, but he plays 23, 22 a night, right? Hampus Lindholm, a couple of years ago, Anaheim, Boston, fairly direct trade. Obviously, salary retainment a part of it, but Lindholm went for a first and 2 seconds. So this is what, if you look at Ferraro's playing time, you think, oh, maybe he should get this, right? But of course, Ferraro is not, and no disrespect to Mario, who, like I said, I love his game, but he is not any of these guys. All these guys are two-way guys, right? All these guys are guys that they may not be top power play guys, but they're going to be second unit guys at worst. And some of them are top unit guys. So all of them play a good two-way game. They're not sort of one way, right? Or more defensively oriented like Ferraro is. So it's really tough looking at those examples to think that you're going to get a first back. But so there's the but part. So I looked at trades basically the last 5 years. And so that is what I found. For the most part, if you're expecting a first for a defenseman in a fairly straight up deal, then we're talking about a guy like a Chychrun or a Seth Jones or a guy that is sort of thought of as a pretty clear, if not one, a clear 2 defenseman.
Of course. And is there any other ones?
Yes. So Sharks fans. So here's what you're hoping for, and this is the offer. If you get, then maybe this is what my career is hoping for. So. Last trade deadline, the Toronto Maple Leafs acquired Jake McCabe, Sam Lafferty, and they got a couple picks too from Chicago for a first round pick and a top 10 protected one, but still a first round pick and a second round pick. That's the basics of the deal. And looking at McCabe is older than Ferraro, and the money was better there, but because of retainment, or retention. But McCabe, in terms of how he's used, though, isn't that different from a Ferraro. McCabe is all PK, all defensive, no power play. And so that is okay. So there was a recent example of something like that. And
we got one.
We got one.
Nice. From the very desperate Toronto Maple Leafs at the time.
Yes, a very, very desperate Toronto Maple Leafs team. And so I don't know if you're gonna find the Carolina Hurricanes or any team that desperate.
Maybe Edmonton at this point, right?
Maybe New Jersey.
Probably not even.
New Jersey needs more defensive defensemen, right? That's been talked about a lot, and so possibly. And if this is what you get back, then I understand. I guess a comp would be Ferraro, and Lafferty is a pretty good penalty killer, so.
Sure.
It could be a Sturm, could be somebody else, though. Sturm is a little bit pricey, I think, at 4C, but maybe you retain on Sturm because he's got 2 years left. So yeah, that's actually an issue. So he's not expiring. Yeah. But you can attach a good like role player with Ferraro, and then that adds to Ferraro's value. No,
the perfect Swiss Army knife. The Jacob McDonald hype train continues on.
But so that's a one comp, and so if you were to get such an offer, then I would probably take if you can get basically a first for Ferraro, then okay, then that's an overpayment, and so that's what I'm talking about. I would not take what I think is fair market value for Ferraro right now. I don't think the Sharks need to trade him, and again, I believe he has upside, and no doubt about the intangibles that he brings to a rebuilding Sharks that need all these intangibles. I think we can agree on that they need leaders, right? And Merrill is as good as you've got, I think. But if it's an overpayment, though, okay, let's talk.
Yeah, I also think like they just don't. There's no one who's going to play 23 minutes a night for the Sharks. So. Like,
oh my god! I can't imagine if they traded Mario.
Exactly. What in the world? Who would be trotting out there for the 23 minutes that Ferraro?
I mean, hopefully Matt Benning gets healthy because he might be a candidate to take on more minutes because he did last year. He did okay. Man. So
that's a nightmare scenario. Like that's just kind of, and I think let's run through an exercise. So I have a list of a couple of trades that have occurred where I took defenders that were similar age to Ferraro. So like 24 to 27 is what I think I used as my cutoff, or like 27 or so, that don't produce points. And they were traded as like a defensive role, basically, from 2014 on. So starting with a Sharks one, Brendan Dillon in 2014 was traded from the Dallas Stars to the San Jose Sharks for Jason Demers, speaking of Jason Demers, and a third-round pick.
Okay.
So
and Demers was the youngest defenseman then too, so yeah.
Yeah. I think Demers was maybe 2 years older than Dillon, or 2 or 3 years older than Dillon. And so the Sharks actually paid a third, but the Stars got Demers in a third. Well, would you take that trade in a similar thing? If it was a player of similar ilk to Demers that you got back with a third?
With a third. The value might be there. I would say probably not. It depends. It's hard to say because it depends on the player you're getting back, obviously, right?
Of course.
But probably not.
I'd say probably not as well.
You're getting two good assets for arguably the better asset. I mean, Dillon was the better, in terms of just the value, Dillon was the better asset, right? Instead of getting just kind of straight up like a really good kind of premium asset in the first round pick. So
yeah, and you're getting older for no reason. Like Demers is older, so like why?
Right, and where the Sharks are, that doesn't make sense. I mean, that kind of makes some sense for Dallas where they were because they were still trying to compete. Makes sense for the Sharks because they needed cheaper contracts and whatnot, right? As they were trying to win Stanley Cups and whatnot, and they saw upside with Dillon. which again I see. Yeah, because I don't know if Dylan got better with the Sharks, and I think that Ferraro can get better on a better team, but whether that's a better Sharks or a better another team. So
yeah, that's a good trade though, because it's like there was a lot more growing for Dylan to do, even though I think he was still like 23 or so when he was traded. Maybe
it's a good
24.
It's a good comp or a good hope, I guess. So it's a reasonable offer for sure.
Here's an interesting one. Eric Goodbranson was traded with a 5th round pick from Florida to Vancouver for Jared McCann, a 2nd and a 4th round pick. Now, Jared McCann at the time wasn't the Jared McCann that we know him now.
Right. He was sort of a struggling first round prospect, right? Wasn't he a first round pick of the Canucks though?
Yes, he was. Or he was a high 2nd, either one.
I thought he was a late
first. Higher up.
But he was a guy that wasn't really he wasn't living up to his potential at that point. He was, I think, looked at as sort of like, oh, this guy's, kind of, maybe he's going to bust a little. But yeah, he was a first round pick, 2014.
Yeah.
When was that trade? Because 2014.
That was in 2016. So 2 years.
Okay, yeah, it's a couple of years. They had a couple of years watching him. So yeah, I think people weren't as high on McCann anymore at that point.
Yeah.
So what was it again?
Former first rounder. It was McCann, a 2nd and a 4th for Goodbranson and a 5th.
Okay. I mean, again, it's hard to say. Yeah, it's hard to say because it depends on the player coming back. So if you like that player coming back, so if you like the Demers equivalent, or if you like the McCann equivalent, that changes things. So,
but not a bad trade.
First rounder, second rounder. Second rounder is obviously better than the 3rd and Demers. I mean, the 2nd helps, and so if you like the how do you say, the centerpiece prospect, which is McCann, I guess in this case, then that's a little more of a maybe. Yeah.
Let's call it like Fabian Liesel or something like that. He's like a good prospect for Boston that has.
Oh boy, yeah, I know people who do not like Liesel. So yeah, actually, that's in my recent Studnicka story that I talked with the scout in 2022. He was talking about Boston prospects at the time: Beecher, Studnicka, Liesel, Harrison. Not going to work out.
Well, Beecher's, I think he's playing for Boston, so he's doing all right.
Well, in terms of just like not going to pan out too much.
Oh yeah,
Studnicka's playing too, but is he going to be what they hoped? Is Beecher going to be what a first rounder? What you hope? Liesel? No, I don't know. So
no, I think personally, this would probably be the one trade I would probably do. Okay. I think this is like
what's a prospect that you like that sort of fallen a little bit, but you still like him a lot? Just wondering.
Yeah, I can't think of one off the top of my head. Okay. Like that kind of compares to this level, but I do like Liesel. I watch him with the P Bruins a lot, so I mean he's fine. He's not he's not what I think people expected him to be, but I think if it was
I hear
Liesel,
or who I talked to was like Brad Lambert fails from Liesel.
Exactly the same player.
Individualistic.
They're not exactly the same player, like to a T, but they are very, very similar
very
players.
Similar, yeah.
So whoever had that opinion is very correct about that. Anyway, but I think this is one I would take. A former first rounder, whoever it is, if I can name a good prospect, but a 2nd and a 4th.
So a 2nd and Liesel, you would take that deal
with a 4th?
Sure.
Yeah,
I know 4th are they're replaceable. So yeah,
maybe not Liesel. I'd have to choose somebody else. Maybe Brad Lambert. I'd probably choose Brad Lambert over Liesel.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, maybe Atu Ratu. That's a good one too that people liked recently. That's kind of fallen out of favor.
Okay.
He fell pretty far into the 2nd. But
sure. I actually don't know how he's doing with Vancouver.
I think he's actually. I checked like a little while. He had like 15 points in 20 games in their AHL team. So that was probably a week ago.
Okay.
2017, Brendan Smith from Detroit to New York Rangers for a 2nd and a 3rd round pick. So it's just more picks.
I thought Smith was more of an offensive guy back then.
I don't think so.
Maybe I'm
I think
wrong.
he still was putting up like no points, I think.
Yeah, and I remember the hype on him though because the Red Wings were having so much success with like everybody they were bringing up, so yeah. So I used to read about stuff on HF boards about how this guy was going to be the next, cornerstone of the Wings defense and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, he had put up 8 points for the Rangers. Yeah, he put up 9 points in the year.
Oh yeah, no, he wasn't much of a scorer. Yeah, but
Yeah.
what's curious
I think there
about
was
is
hype at some point about him. So
his special team splits, though, just his usage there.
yeah,
Power play. Yeah, he did get some power play time with the Rangers, a lot more than the Ferraro. I'm sorry, with the Red Wings. He actually did get a second PP2, but he did get some PP2.
But he was well
Actually
regarded in the league.
all
You're
throughout
right.
his time with the Red Wings. Yeah, so maybe slightly different comp there.
Yeah, he just didn't put up points, but he was a well-regarded player. I do remember him being hyped up. So this could be.
So
kind of
anyway,
similar
I
there.
wouldn't take a straight up second or third though. Yeah, so there's nothing else in that deal.
Nope, just a second and third.
Yeah,
they're pretty similar age.
The mechanic example you gave, or even the Demers, if you really like the player you're getting back, then okay. Even if he's older or there's other kind of red flags or things you don't love about it, but if you really like that player you're getting back, okay.
Yeah. These next ones are going to be kind of an easy rule out for both of us. 2017 and 2019, Jamie Oleksiak was traded for a 4th-round pick. In 2017, he was closer to Mario Ferraro's age, but Marcus Pettersson was traded from Anaheim to Pittsburgh for Daniel Sprong.
But that's both like kind of considered to be failed for. Not Pettersson's worked out well, right? But like disappointing first rounders at a time, right? Because wasn't Pettersson the first round, or he was a second rounder maybe, right? But kind of a disappointing higher pick. Sprong, I remember, was a first rounder. So
yes, yeah. So Sprong was a high pick that was not panning out, and then I think Marcus Pettersson was a first rounder, but clearly one worked out and the other one did not.
Right. And
it's
so everything matters.
Trade me your garbage for our garbage at the time.
Yeah. He was a second rounder, Pettersson, in 2014 for the Ducks. But yeah. So again, it depends on how much you like that guy. But chances are you're not going to get a guy. I never like I don't like the high upside scoring types because they often don't pan out, and if they become just 20 goal guys, they're not that useful to you. Like I think a Ferraro is more useful than Daniel Sprong as he is now, as sort of a fringes 20 goal guy. Ferraro's definitely more valuable than that.
Yeah, especially where the Sharks are now. I don't think it makes much sense. Cody Ceci was traded with a 3rd-round pick from Ottawa to Toronto for Connor Brown and Zaitsev. So it's kind of like trading your defensive prospects, plus you get Connor Brown, or defensive players, plus you get Connor Brown. At the time, Connor Brown was good. Connor Brown is not very good right now, but he was putting up like 40
He was kind
points.
he was like a pretty good middle six guy. And then Zaitsev was older, but could play some top 4. But he had a bad contract, right? Or did Ottawa sign that contract?
No, he had a bad contract, and they were trying to go to get out of it, basically. So they took on CC to get out of the Zaitsev.
Okay.
And also gave them Connor, or that was.
I mean, if you
get
kind of the trade. 2 players, like a guy who can play in your top 4, maybe, and a guy who can play your middle 6, and they're good, and at least one of them is youngish, and that was Brown back then, maybe. Maybe. Again, it depends on like how much you like the player. So
yeah, how much you like him, how much upside is left. I mean, and then the last one is Siegenthaler from Washington to New Jersey for a 3rd-round pick. No.
not again. I don't see the point in a third. And Siegenthaler obviously had upside, right? And so I do think, and I might be in a minority, but these days, I think Ferraro's got upside.
I think we found a consensus. It's 1st-round pick, or at my end, it's like multiple picks, one of them being a second and a prospect that was highly regarded.
Sure.
You know what?
Yeah.
That's it. We've made the trade. Now, Greer, get on the phone.
It's all overpayments, though, right? So and that's why I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced you'll find that, though. Ferraro's intangibles are attracted to a playoff team. He's a guy that I think people do agree that he's a guy that you can win with, which is very valuable in this league, and does get you stuff at a trade deadline. That may not get you stuff in the summer, but might get you stuff at a trade deadline. So it's possible. Yeah.
I wonder how much of because Mike Greer is kind of, I won't say cleaning house, but he has traded so many of the Doug Wilson era like guys. right? And like a lot of them, and most of them are prospects, right? But I really wonder how much of that comes into play too. Like if he really does get the right deal, is he just gonna say, "Well, I got to get my own guy anyway," and he's just kind of?
Well, the difference is he likes Ferraro.
Yeah, exactly. Or is Ferraro so good in the locker room that he's gonna keep him? You know,
I don't know if he's so good that you must keep him, but definitely he likes Ferraro though. I mean, you don't think he would have signed him to the contract that he signed him for, right? So obviously we saw that he is not fond of a lot of the leftover guys, and so it's been pretty quick to the axe with a lot of them, or trading them for very little at least, right? So not holding on to them and giving them chances to sort of recover, or a lot of chances to recover their value. A-Law, Merkley, Chychrun, a lot of guys, right? I mean, that's what always happens in a new regime. But he likes Ferraro. Oh, and look, I'm Mark Malone.
Did they change it?
They did. Yeah, it's now the Nuggets.
Oh my gosh!
Back-to-back champions. So that's
Look at you, man. You're getting you're just going all over cross sporting. Yeah. Wow. So, I didn't realize they started so early in the night that they need to.
I guess they're just setting up. I don't know if the Nuggets play tomorrow here or something. So yeah.
You're gonna find out that you cannot leave this building. That you're actually physically locked in the building.
That's actually happened before. I've been trapped in Madison Square Garden. There's always one exit at least. So you're never fully trapped, but like some buildings, any door you can exit and you just close behind you and they don't worry about it. But some buildings more secure, so they don't allow you to just exit any door at a specific time. So it just depends. So. So I might have that trouble getting out of here. So yeah. So if I'm at the next Sharks games, guys,
he's actually just
find
switched
me in Ball Arena. Yeah, find me in Ball Arena.
He's now reporting on the Denver Nuggets. That's it.
There's everything I need here. There's a shower here. Free media meal. It's one of the few places with a free media meal, which is a big. I know it doesn't mean anything to
that is pretty cool.
You guys listening, but most NHL cities or arenas you visit, you got to pay for the media meal, anywhere from $10 to $20, and which is I'm not complaining about that. But when you get a free media meal somewhere, I said this today that I'll never have anything bad to say about the Cronkies. So never, not for me. I am not objective about getting free media meals. And no, I don't get those in San Jose. So
wow. I think Mushu would miss you. So you can't stay.
That's true.
You can't stay.
I would miss her.
Your dog would miss you. Exactly. You don't have everything you need. You're missing maybe one or two things. All right. Anything else to say about Ferraro after our trade consensus?
I don't think a trade's going to happen. That's just my feel. I could be wrong, but I don't think they're. I think they're angling for overpayment. I don't think they'll get it, and that's my feel of the situation. But we'll see.
I 100% agree. I cannot picture icing a team right now unless you get back like a vet guy that can somehow also play 20-something minutes. I just don't get it.
That could be your Zaitsev, whatever, yeah.
So. Yeah, your Zaitsev. So it would have to be an overpayment, and I don't think it's going to happen. That's my feeling.
It's also his contract, too. You know, if his contract was, and I talked about this, like Matt Benning, if he had the Matt Benning contract, great contract, then okay. Then that adds value if you can fit in like Barclay Goodrow. How did Barclay Goodrow get a first round pick years ago? Part of it was his contract because the Lightning saw that this guy can play an elevated role, and that's worth a first, right? And so, but that $3.25 million of Ferraro's doesn't fit in as easily as Goodrow's, like kind of like whatever Goodrow was like 1.9. Was he like near minimum or 1.9?
I think it was like 1.1 or something.
1.1, yeah.
Yeah, something in the ones.
Yeah, something definitely in the ones. Yeah, so
it's money ball, right?
That. Oh yeah, no, everything is contracts, and so again, that's why I don't understand about Ferraro because his contract is not great. It's fine, but it's not great. It was actually Goodrow was I think $925,000.
Not bad.
And the Lightning got that for 2 years at that cost, and obviously they won Stanley Cups with Goodrow, I think both years, right? And so the difference of Goodrow is I don't know how different he is as a player. I haven't seen him that much with the Rangers, but assuming he's the same player, but now he's making 4 times the money, so That's
the problem.
We talk about contracts and with the salary cap. That's so important. And so, so if Ferraro was making like 1.5, then I'd be like, then you definitely hold out for a first, and teams definitely would be banging on the door for that. Because we're talking about now 1.5 defenseman is 25, who is at worst a really excellent bottom pairing guy, and maybe you think he has upside, right? And so if he kind of lives up to that a bit, then all of a sudden you have a absolute, not just a bargain, but like absolute bargain, right? If your middle pairing guy is making 1.5 and you're in the playoffs or you're winning championships, but 3.25, man. I that's another one all those pieces don't quite fit for me. Even though again, I love Ferraro, but all those pieces don't quite fit for me.
Yeah, there's ways that you should spend that money. I think if you're running an NHL team that's gonna win the Stanley Cup. So
exactly, yeah.
All right, let's get out of here, and so you can go home or wherever you're gonna go after this. But...
Yep.
Next week is Christmas. We'll have to talk about when we're going to actually release our episode, because a week from now it is Christmas.
Yeah.
But we'll have an episode before the World Juniors is probably what's going to happen.
Well, so we got to record before Christmas then.
Yeah. So I hope everybody has a great week, and we will see you soon before the World Juniors.
Bye guys.